employment. And we've already seen, sadly, unemployment rise by, I think the figure is 300,000 since this government took office. The government's own impact assessment estimates that the measures could cost businesses up to £5 billion annually. According to the Institute of Economic Affairs, the £5 billion figure is likely to be a considerable underestimate. It almost entirely relates to increased administrative burdens, failing to calculate the significant impacts on business costs and hiring, making it more expensive to employ people. For instance, there is no attempt to calculate how many fewer people will be hired due to limiting zero-hours contracts and day-one rights to unfair dismissal protection, or the costs of more strike action as a result of repealing the measures that made it harder to strike in the Trade Union Act of 2016. Studies estimates that about 80% of the extra costs are passed on in the form of lower wages than would otherwise have been paid. According to the government's impact assessment, the costs will also be proportionately higher for small and micro businesses due to the fixed costs of admin and compliance burdens. Because, of course, there is an irreducible minimum. If you have to, have your menopause management plan and you've only got 3 employees, someone's got to write that plan and manage that plan. And it doesn't seem to derogate so that certain sides of the business just can take a knee and have a buy. The Regulatory Policy Committee, the group that assesses the quality of government impact assessments, say that the government's impact assessment for the Employment Rights Bill was, and I quote, not fit for purpose, unquote. And that the Chartered Institute for Personal Development published a report in April 2025 entitled, quote, The Unintended Consequences of the Employment Rights Bill, unquote. Their survey of 2,000 employers showed that about 8 in 10 believe that the measures in the Employment Rights Bill will increase their employment costs. About half of the employers surveyed believe that that overall the ERB measures will negatively affect employment at their organisation. When we look at how employers plan to respond to the 7 measures, one by one, we can see that between 5 and 20% of employers indicate that each of the measures will lead them to reduce staff through redundancies and/or recruiting fewer workers to their organisation. So much for the #1 mission of growth. Out of the measures proposed, the planned changes to the rules on unfair dismissal are expected to have the largest negative impact on employers' recruitment and redundancy intentions. The conclusions from the report were that 8 out of 10 employers believe certain measures in the bill, such as changes to unfair dismissal rules and the introduction of a new statutory probation period, will have the effect of increasing their workforce costs. Of these organisations, 4 in 10, the removal of the unfair dismissal qualifying period and the introduction of the new statutory probation period will mean that they will be less likely to recruit from these groups. And this is the last point I want to make. It's obviously a big thing to take on new employees and to assimilate them into your teams, and culture eats strategy for breakfast in business. And making those crucial hires those are some of the biggest decisions that any employer will make. And it is often the case, and I've done hundreds of these interview boards, that there is what you identify as the risk candidate. They are the different person. They are the person who thinks differently to the way you do. They're the person you don't fully understand. They're the person, more often than not, that you should employ. But my great fear is that actually, as a result of the measures in the Employment Rights Bill that more diverse candidates, or fewer diverse candidates will be employed because people, quote, won't want to take the risk, unquote, and ironic.